Like Baldy's Farm story time. This year's New Year's resolution. I was not very popular that day. Hello everybody and happy new year. Welcome back to another video. I can't believe it is 2023 already. We came crashing back to reality this week because we tried to take it easy last week, but then on the first morning back, within an hour, the 3200 had broke down. Been having fuse issues with it for a little while, but it was big time. It just would not work whatsoever. But we think, fingers crossed, we've solved the problem now. Then Wizard, one of our bulls, decided to stick his head through one of the gates and knock the middle bar out, and he just stood there looking out across the world and surveying his kingdom, which was very funny, but a job we could have just really done without. I also did a little bit of quick maths as well on our silage use, and I think we're just a little bit heavy on it, so I'm praying for a nice spring so we can get some young stock out fairly early and maybe even carve some cows outside so that we can just lighten up on that silage use a little bit. Also, it'd be nice if we can start and get the ball rolling, see some of this grass growing and forage rye and all that kind of stuff. I actually went to the football the other night with my next door neighbour, and he described when he went on holiday how he went to a market, and this market was in 3 halves, which I really enjoyed. It's the kind of thing that tickles me, that is. I feel like my forage rye is also a story of 3 halves because I've got some of it looking absolutely amazing, some of it looking really good, and then there's a little bit that just does not look very well at all. My granddad always used to talk about things having big halves and little halves as well, which I also really enjoyed. So I've decided that this year's New Year's resolution is to use more inaccurate fractions. But today, we're actually off to Thornton to get some hedges cut because I haven't done any over there yet this year. And hopefully my tyre is still up. If you watched my video last week, you'll know that I had a bit of tyre trouble. But look at this. Happy days, look at that. Solid as a rock. Someone said that there might have been some water in the valve and it had frozen and then it just made the valve release, which I think could well have happened actually. I think it was Alison, I think. Well done, Alison, if it was you. We'll go and get loaded up, get ready. I might need to fuel her up, which looks nice now she's clean too. Whoop. Please start, please start, please start, please start. Yes! Good work, come on Barley, we're away! Just pulled it up at the diesel tank. So I've got half tank of fuel, but I should fill it up before I go because the other week I actually ran this out of fuel. I was not very popular that day. I did the usual thing, like you don't use a lot of fuel on the hedge cutter, so you just kind of get in it and drive. Yeah, that day I was literally just at the top of the yard as well though, so it was very lucky that I wasn't far away, and it all of a sudden spluttered. I turned it off, but yeah, it took me about 2 hours to get it started, and in the end I had to call Dad. It's actually going to be quite a full-on day of hedge cutting because the ground that we own, we don't actually own any of the rights of way into it. We just have 2 rights of way. One right of way, which is owned by the Milner family, they look after it really well and it's dead good. They trim all the hedges, the path's always mowed, easy to get in and out of. The other right of way, which is owned by multiple people, they just do nothing with it. So I have to cut all the way up to the land and make sure that we can still get access our field, which is a lot of fun. You can also get the odd person who's really grumpy about you cutting the hedge down the track, and I don't know why. They have no reason to be grumpy, they just like to be. So hopefully we don't run into any of those guys today and we can just crack on with it, because really could do with getting it done. There's about 3 or 4 days worth I think over there this year, and yeah, just want to get on with it. Right, I'll see you when we get there. And here we are at Thornton, which is good news. I cut the track out on the way up because no one was around, and actually it was really good going. So I've got all that trimmed up and I've got up to here. You have to kind of drive through all of these trees that are behind me, and I'll tell you a little story about them in a minute. We own that field you can see on the bank there, and we've got this one this side, and then we've got another one at the top. And I always keep this hedge here in particular trimmed as well, because it doesn't belong to us. It kind of belongs to the guys who own these trees, which is our neighbour. But this is all a footpath, and I keep it all tidy. It stops it getting gappy, because the last thing I want is for it to get really tall, gappy, and then the cows get through it. When I was a kid, I used to come up here, my granddad, so I'm 31 now, probably when I was 4 or 5, I used to come with my granddad, and he had an old 90 Land Rover, a county one, blue, white roof, white wheels, you know, the classic. And he had 3 seats in the middle. I used to sit on the middle seat and I'd come up here and I'd always open the gates and do all of that sort of stuff. He'd let me steer as we were going around the cows while he's counting, which I used to love. And all of these fields here where these trees are at that point were all stubble fields and they were arable. And then they planted them all with trees because we're in the heart of the national forest here, and we've got Thornton Reservoir just down there. The M1 is kind of just over there. Thornton Village is over that way as well. And I'd say these trees have been in for about 25 years now, and you can tell they've like got quite tall, making a real nice dense woodland here, which is kind of cool to see. And it's made a big difference to wildlife over here. So there's no end of muntjac and pheasants in here and all sorts of stuff. It's really nice to see. You can come and walk through all this as well. It's called Brown's Woods. It's actually just a really nice place to be. So I love coming over here. I've said it so many times when we come over here, but I just love it. It's so peaceful. I kind of wish that we had a bit of a yard up here, somewhere we could turn into a house where I could live. I kind of like doing little stories like that about the farm and about like the past. Maybe I should do it a bit more, like Baldy's Farm story time. Let me know what you think. But me and the dog just having a bit of a wander around. Just let you go for a wee, didn't we, Barley? We're going to go and cut this hedge now, and then we'll actually get inside and start and cut our own. Let's hop to it. Getting a bit hot too. I think I'm going to have to take my hat off and my coat because I'm roasting in here. Right, lunchtime. I was just thinking as well about those trees when they were planted. I remember they had an old combine, cabless one. I think it was a New Holland, but I can't remember. And they parked it at the bottom of the track. They didn't really do any farming after they planted it all with trees. They kind of packed up and then it just grew in the trees. And I used to love coming and seeing it sort of growing into the bushes. It was so cool. And it used to remind me of those films you see in America where someone just rocks up down a dirt track and turns up at some ranch somewhere. There's just a ton of clapped out tractors and trucks in the middle of just this big dust lot. And I think there still is an old tractor in the woods 1 field across that way. I don't even know what kind of brand of tractor it is. It's gone so rusty, but it's just there growing in all the brambles and the nettles. Look what else I've bought with me today as well. I've bought my drone, so I'm going to stick this up and hopefully get some really cool shots. It is windy out there though, so I don't know how good it'll be, but we'll give it a go. There she goes. Just thought I would stop and talk you through something that Dad and I are thinking of doing this spring. Some of you will have seen this before, but those of you who are new haven't. Our ground at Thornton here, which is the field the other side of there, and then this one, the one that runs up above it, we rotationally graze it. So we put fences running that way up the field, and we have to section it off in 2 hectare blocks so that we don't have to move them every single day. And the reason why we do that is because all of our ground is spring water fed. This is the spring, and then there's a pipe that takes it through to the other side. And the one issue we have is that we have to put the fences along the field and then back so that all the cows can constantly get spring water from here. But what we're thinking of doing is putting a permanent electric fence along here, about 20 or so meters out from the hedge, with those bungee cord electric fence things that you can put across gateways. And the idea being that we can have a gateway for every single grazing block, and we can just open the gateway, pull it back to the fence on that side, hook it up so that the cows can just walk out of their paddock and along to here, and then the next day we can just walk them out of that one, shut the fence, and then open the next one along, so that they just have access to the next paddock, and then the next paddock, and the next paddock. So that way round, we don't have to have loads of electric fence reels constantly moving around, and we can move the cows more often, and it should be a lot easier for us, a lot quicker, and it should just be a lot easier for the cows to be able to graze. So look out for that video, because that one will be really interesting. We'll have to get the drone up for that as well and show you it from above. Spring's absolutely pouring out there, so that's good news. It's not blocked up either. Right, let's go a bit more before it gets dark. Right, and that's us for another day. Still got a day or two more to do over there, but at least we've got some done. Starting to see the end of it now, because we've got just a bit more up the village to do, a couple of little roadsides, and then that bit of Thornton. So soon can get the hedge cutter off and we can have the tractor back. Anyway, I'm going to sign off. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you've had an awesome start to this year. Whatever you get for this weekend, have a great one. See you in a bit. Ta-da!